Stewardship season. John.
Morning. So I've been asked to talk about stewardship. Our theme this year is Rooted in Abundance. And what I was thinking about in Rooted in Abundance is thinking about what are your roots? How were you formed as a person? And I go back to my own childhood in thinking about my own roots. I grew up in Oklahoma, and I grew up attending church. As a matter of fact, when my parents decided they weren't going to church anymore, I still went to church because that's what you do in Oklahoma. And I would get on the bus every Sunday and go to a Southern Baptist church because lots of Baptists in Oklahoma. Even though I grew up Episcopalian, I'm a cradle Episcopalian. And my first thing about thinking about stewardship was we had children's chapel, and our children's chapel was one of these big mega churches where we would have 300 plus kids in an auditorium, and this was just the elementary kids. And we would have this kind of scale with two buckets on the side, and every week it was a contest between the boys and the girls who would give more, and you drop pennies in the bucket, and that was our way of doing offering. It was kind of a fun way to kind of engage. But I always remembered I'd always bring a couple of dollars to church, and I would cash them in for the pennies to try to make sure the boys won. Sometimes we did, sometimes we didn't. And so that was, again, one of those fun ways that they kind of engaged us in giving. Eventually, my mom decided she didn't want me being in the Southern Baptist Church. This was probably about third grade, because they wanted to rebaptize me. And we do infant baptism in the Episcopal Church because he doesn't need to be rebaptized. So she decided she was going back to church, and I went back to the Episcopal Church at that point. And look at me. So, but one thing my parents always did was always make sure I had a few dollars to drop in that collection plate. And I will tell you, I didn't come from an affluent household. I was on a household that grew up on food stamps and social services, and so that act of generosity was always still there. And I'm a product of the church. I wouldn't be standing up here in a collar if it hadn't had impact on me. I continued to be a kid who went to youth group. I was an acolyte every Sunday. Couldn't wait to be the thurifer on Christmas and Easter so I could swing that incense. If the church hadn't been there, I don't know where I would be today, because I know where the money goes. And when I was a kid, I was only able to attend things like church camp and all the youth group functions because there was scholarship money available, or else I would be left out. Then I fast forward into my high school years. The church enabled me to do things that I wouldn't have been able to do because my parents weren't able to provide that kind of stuff. Like, for example, I wanted to take voice lessons. So my priests worked out an agreement that if I washed the windows every week of the church, they would pay for the voice lessons. And that continued to follow that work ethic of giving to the church. And then eventually, after college, I joined the Episcopal Service Corps, where I served a year in Omaha, Nebraska. And I got to serve as a youth minister at a fairly large Episcopal church, where I had over 80 youth. And at the same time, I also worked for Habitat for Humanity as my outreach ministry. And I will tell you don't want to see me with a hammer. They moved me to the office. But again, seeing how the church continues to engage in the world was so important. And then I moved on, and I became a hospital chaplain for a year. And then I moved out here to the Bay Area to start seminary at CDSP. And in my journey, every parish that I've been in has always been so unique. The question about how does it engage you as a person? How does it engage in its local context? And every church is different. I remember my first assignment as a deacon was at Holy Child in St. Martin at Daly City. That's the Filipino parish of the diocese. And again, the context there was really unique. We looked at the fact that there were a lot of nurses in the congregation, and we started a health clinic. And I helped them raise $100,000 to get this clinic up and running. And it's still providing free services to the neighborhood out there in Daly City. I think about One of the other unique things I got to do there was they sent me off to the Philippines for a month to go learn about their culture and seeing how the Episcopal Church works in the context of international ministry. I have had the opportunity to be a missionary both in the Philippines and Panama. I've even done a medical mission trip to Haiti. And all of that is amazing because the church is doing powerful work. They're saving people's lives. They're transforming lives. And I don't doubt that here at St. Albans, people's lives have been touched in many ways. I think about people. I think Sean Tip is our oldest member, right? How much? Who? Oh, Sandra. Okay. So I think about what kind of roots over the years, if you think about how many years of legacy St. Albans has been here, what's it been like? How has it formed you as a person? How does it transform your hearts and minds? And how do we as a church continue to engage, whether it's in the arts, when we think about Calliope and people who come here to take their music lessons, or when we think about Albany Thrives and how it's engaging people and making sure that people get fed and they get showered. Again, lives are transformed by this community. And so I ask you to think about, how are you rooted in abundance this stewardship season?
Thank you, John. That's a nice